Hi everyone, welcome to our channel Verse and Archive. Today we are going to talk about outlaw ethics in RDR2, the perspectives of Arthur Morgan, Dutch van der Linde, John Marston, and Micah Bell. RDR is a masterpiece loved by all of us, a game that has held a special place in our hearts and has been discussed for years. Some say the game is overrated and that newer titles have surpassed it, but we disagree. When you truly think about RDR2, it opens many paths for interpretation. Today, using RDR2 as our basis, we'll explore the question: what is cowboy morality? Are the boundaries of morality drawn only by law? Does religion play a role in defining these boundaries? In this video, we will examine this question through the world of RDR2. This video may contain heavy spoilers. I recommend watching after finishing the game. Arthur Morgan, the beginning. At the beginning, Arthur Morgan is simply an outlaw, part of a gang, and deeply loyal to Dutch, whom he sees as a father figure. While John Marston once considered spending a year away from the gang, Arthur never made such a choice, not even for Mary. In Arthur's philosophy, protecting the gang, staying loyal to it, above everything else was always the priority. He doesn't care about personal preferences or societal moral norms. If he must kill for the gang's benefit, he kills, and he steals when needed. Hosea, who can be seen as a mentor and someone who gently reminds the group of broader moral norms, is, in my opinion, the closest person in the gang to what we call a socially moral individual today. He lightly warns Arthur against blind loyalty and encourages more thoughtful action. But at the start of the game, Arthur believes the best strategy for survival is joining a group, protecting it, and staying loyal to it. Even if the gang's actions harm or kill outsiders, Arthur feels he must not question their choices and must always support them. In a world where the state cannot fully enforce the law, and even its methods resemble those of outlaws, this way of living is not entirely illogical. Considering the constant risk of death, ambush, or rival gang attacks, Arthur's worldview makes perfect sense within that universe. Morgan Honorable. The first factor that shifts Arthur's worldview is his tuberculosis. Previous deaths never affected him as deeply as the realization that was now approaching him personally. During this period, even though his faith wasn't strong, his conversations with the sister contributed to him listening to his inner voice. Events such as John not being rescued and Native Americans being dragged into danger for Dutch's personal goals further shatters Arthur's trust in him. Arthur began to crack the shell of outlaw morality and added genuine questioning. He realized the consequences of blind loyalty and openly criticized Dutch. Directing his loyalty toward people he believed were making the right choices, Arthur began protecting those in the gang who were more vulnerable or guided by their consciousness. For this, he rejected Mary's offer. He sacrificed the chance for a future he longed for to protect the people he cared about during his limited remaining time. In RDR2's outlaw morality, most people are not deeply loyal and are willing to leave the group when it benefits them. Arthur, however, remains faithful to his moral compass. Even if you play Arthur with low honor, he still manages to protect John and his family at the end, showing that his loyalty persists regardless of honor level. Arthur chooses redemption over revenge, hence his famous line, "Revenge is a fool's game." In his final days, he focuses not on payback, but on correcting past mistakes by doing good. At his core, Arthur Morgan is driven by two main principles: loyalty and redemption. keeping in mind that he once committed murder, theft, and other crimes as a full outlaw. His character development, at least in my interpretation, comes from finally hearing his inner moral voice, a voice long suppressed by blind loyalty. Had Arthur lived in a different environment, he might have heard this voice earlier and lived a life we will describe as honorable, at least more honorable. Dutch Vanderlyn.
What are we doing next, Dutch?
There are many interpretations regarding Dutch's character and intentions.
One more decent.
I want to share my own perspective with you, and you can share your different ideas in the comments if you'd like.
Mr. Milton.
During my
You
first
ain't much of
playthrough,
anything more than a
I felt
killer.
that Dutch wasn't really trying to protect us, especially in a time when we needed to lay low. His decision to organize a train robbery made me feel that he wasn't acting in the gang's best interest. Yet, despite that, I still believed he cared about the group. I even saw his decision to go to Breathface to save Jack as a proof of this. At the time, I interpreted his paranoia, which is somewhat understandable given their life, as something intensified by Micah's influence. In my second playthrough, however, I realized that the train robbery was indefensible. It put the gang in a serious danger and showed how heavily Dutch prioritized money over the gang's safety. Even saving Jack at the Breathwaite estate felt more like a performance. A message saying, "I'm still here. Despite my mistakes, you can trust me." I based it on how, towards the end, he doesn't seem to care that Jack ends up both fatherless and motherless. After all, there is at most a year between these events. His increasingly erratic decisions throughout the story suggest that Dutch had this psychological foundation from the very beginning, but managed to suppress it for a while. Realizing that the gang will eventually fall apart because of their constant robberies, Dutch began to silence his consciousness and follow his instincts more strongly. And we know those instincts were directly tied to money and power. Even Tahiti Dream he offers near the end is nothing more than an unreachable fantasy. False hope meant to distract the gang from disastrous reality. Dutch's method of binding people to himself is simple. First, rescue them from a difficult situation, do them favors, protect them, make them feel indebted, and then manipulate them. Dutch was never the kind of leader who would sacrifice his life for the gang. Dutch always loved himself the most, and he was always most loyal to himself. He loved the others only with the whatever remained from that self-love, just enough to keep them close and protect them as long as they were useful to him. In the end, his ability to shoot Micah shows that there was still a faint trace of emotion left in him. But true redemption for Vanderlyn was already gone. Finally, I want to say that Dutch was neither a fool nor a simple villain. He was a layered leader who loved money and himself more than anything else. John Marston. Here I'll comment on John Marston through the lens of RDR2. Compared to Arthur, John is a less defined character with less narrative depth in RDR2. This is partly because we spent less time playing as him, and partly because Rockstar chose to portray a somewhat different John Marston. At first, John feels a bit distant from Jack, but over the time, he forms a stronger bond with him. In the early game, Abigail even asked Arthur, not John, to teach Jack how to fish, which already shows that emotional distance. As time passes, however, John gradually becomes more aware of his responsibilities. Abigail has always been the one who is more grounded, and John's loyalty, while real, has always leaned more toward his family than the gang. John has always been the golden boy, but he doesn't possess the same unwavering loyalty that Arthur has. Despite his somewhat naive and straightforward appearance, we see that John and Abigail learn the location of the gang's money before Arthur does, and they begin thinking about what to do with it. From a traditional outlaw perspective, this highlights how John prioritized his family above all else. Yet within the gang, he still shows loyalty to those he chooses. John's growing awareness unsettles Dutch, and this becomes increasingly clear toward the end of the story. Comparing to Arthur, John follows a more questioning, reflective path. And for an outlaw of that era, being so devoted to his family is almost unusual. In terms of outlaw ethics, his loyalty to the gang remains within expected boundaries. Before even reaching RDR, we see John embracing revenge, unlike Arthur. He wants retribution, and this is consistent with his character. Even when he attempts to start a new life as a rancher and leave his outlaw days behind, he never fully rejects violence or gunfighting. John is the character who aligns most closely with traditional outlaw ethics. He has his own priorities. He is loyal to gang, but not blind so. And when things fall apart, he thinks about the escape and survival of himself, his family, and those he loves. He has a revenge-driven philosophy and doesn't hesitate to use force when necessary, unlike characters who attempt to resolve conflicts without violence. Micah Bell. Micah is the clearest proof that one of the natural outcomes of lawlessness is not always freedom, but sometimes corruption. Unlike Arthur's consciousness, Dutch's ideas, or John's sense of responsibility, Micah lacks any inner anchor whatsoever. Through a lens, he is a man entirely ruled by passive emotions: hatred, arrogance, the hunger for violence, and pursuit of domination. These impulses do not merely influence him, they control him. Micah's so-called ethics are not moral framework, but a chaotic accumulation of impulses. For him, power replaces meaning, betrayal becomes strategy, and loyalty matters as long as it serves him. In this sense, Micah represents the decayed, unromantic core of outlaw life, a force that restricts freedom instead of expanding it, that turns survival into predation, and that exposes what an outlaw becomes when stripped of consciousness, loyalty, and purpose. Where Arthur strives for redemption, Dash hides behind ideals, and John clings to family, Micah embraces cruelty as identity. He is a brutal reminder that in the world of RDR2, morality is not determined by law, fate, or societal norms, by the inner compass each individual carries or fails to carry. Micah's compass spins endlessly, pointing nowhere and dragging all who trust him into destruction. In the end, Red Dead Redemption 2 isn't just a story about outlaws. It's the story about the fragile moral worlds they build for themselves. Arthur searches for redemption, Dutch hides behind collapsing ideals, John fights to reshape his life for the sake of his family, and Micah sinks into pure lawlessness. Each of them walks the same violent frontier, yet their choices carve entirely different destinies. Because in the world of RDR2, outlaw ethics aren't written in codes or rules. They are written in the hearts of the people who dare to live outside the law. Some rise, some fall, and some vanish into very chaos they helped create. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us here at the Worlds and Archive for more deep dive storytelling analysis.
Thank you.